Hello everyone, welcome to the An Echo of the Past channel. My name is Albert Einstein, and today I will share with you the story of my life, my discoveries, and the thoughts that left a mark on the world of science and beyond. Join me on this journey through time as we explore the key moments and decisions that shaped me as a scientist and a person. I hope this story inspires you just as it inspired me throughout my life. So let's begin. Hello again. Dear listeners, I'm returning with the first chapter of my life, childhood and early interests. So that you don't think a genius comes into the world with a physics textbook under his pillow, I'd like to share a few amusing snippets from my childhood. I was born in Ulm, a quiet German town. Although Ulm doesn't exactly have a reputation as a city full of geniuses, its industrial chimneys at least ensured that we wouldn't oversleep in the mornings. My early years in this world weren't particularly extraordinary, except that I was a master in the art of staring intently into the unknown, which my parents interpreted as intense concentration. One day, my father, Hermann, brought home a small compass, not realizing he had just triggered my first aha moment in life. When I saw the needle unfailingly point north every time, I began to theorize about the invisible forces that move the world. No, it wasn't elves, as I initially thought, but something much more mysterious. In school, I often heard that my head was in the clouds. It's true I frequently imagined space adventures during lessons, rather than listening to history lectures. One teacher even once told me that nothing will ever come of nothing. But what kind of little rebel would I be if I let that discourage me? Music played an important role in my life, primarily thanks to my mother Pauline, who insisted I learn to play the violin. Despite the terrible screeching my playing initially caused, Beethoven's compositions were my escape into another world. I'm sure Beethoven would have, to put it mildly, appreciated my attempts with an interesting eye roll, and thus began my journey, with a compass in one hand and a violin in the other. Who would have guessed that these moments were at the beginning of my exploration and desire to understand the greatest mysteries of the universe? When I look back at my school years, I have to smile. My schooling in Germany was, let's say, somewhat unorthodox. Often I sat in the school desk, and instead of listening to the teachers, my mind was invaded by thoughts of the universe and its mysteries. My teachers were confused by this, which manifested in their frustration once they realized I had no idea what was being discussed. One of them even called me a lost cause because I often took my own mental journeys into the world of physics during lessons. Despite sometimes being bored at school, I was fortunate to have great parents who encouraged my curiosity. My father, while not wanting to become my personal mentor in physics, always understood my inquisitive questions. My mother, on the other hand, insisted that I learn to play the violin, which provided me with not only musical refreshment, but also a certain escape. At age 16, my family moved to Switzerland, and I began studying at the Polytechnic in Zurich. This change of environment was like entering another galaxy. I was thrilled to have finally found a place where I could freely develop my ideas. At the Zurich Polytechnic, I met wonderful professors and classmates who encouraged me to pursue my goals. My student years in Zurich were filled with intensive studying, but I didn't lack adventure either. Many evenings were spent in cafes where my classmates and I debated physics, philosophy, and life itself. It was a time of discovery, not just in the scientific sense, but also of self-discovery. This period helped me understand that my desire to understand the world is what drives me forward. The experience in Switzerland became the catalyst for many of my future successes and laid the groundwork for what was to come. And who would have guessed that the student in whom many placed little hope would one day change the horizons of world science? After graduating from Zurich, it was clear to me that the world of theory was just waiting for me. But as they say, real life sometimes decides to throw obstacles in your path. Despite my enthusiasm for physics, I spent years searching for stable employment. Eventually, I found a job in Bern, but it wasn't in any prestigious laboratory filled with test tubes and lasers. I ended up as a clerk at the patent office. Working at the patent office was like being a detective with a magnifying glass, observing what had already been invented, and pondering whether I was looking at a new invention of the century or just another refreshed version of a juicer. Although it might seem like a boring job, for me, it was the ideal platform for exploration. I could quietly examine all these ideas while my thoughts wandered freely into theoretical realms. In the office, I established something like a secret society of thoughts. Every day after work, I sat at my desk and immersed myself in my own research as if it were a secret project. In 1905, now known as my miracle year, I published several key papers that became the foundation of modern physics. Among them was the theory of relativity. To be honest, when I first wrote down the equation EMC2, I didn't think it would become so famous that people would tattoo it or put it on t-shirts. From my position as a clerk, the world seemed pretty simple, but I thought far beyond its boundaries. Through my research, I realized how relative time and space are. It was a moment when I understood that the world is more complex than many imagine. Just as my boss didn't understand why I talked more about light beams than correctly filled out forms. Nevertheless, my explorations in Bern provided me with more than just intellectual challenges. Friends and family were my support and taught me that even amidst the complexities of today's physics, I must sometimes stop and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Among these pleasures were walks in Bern's parks, or moments with a good book or a game of chess. In Bern, I found not only a place where I could experiment with my thoughts, but also where I lived many important moments of life. These years shaped not only my professional path, but also my personal perspective on the world. It turned out that even in a small office, great ideas can be born that change the world. Who would have thought that from an ordinary patent office would emerge a theory that would shake the foundations of physics? The year 1905 became one of the most memorable in my life. It was the year when, tucked behind a pile of papers at the patent office in Bern, I pushed the boundaries of physics so much that I had to be careful not to exceed the coffee limit as well. Why a miracle year? Well, during those 12 months, I published 4 groundbreaking papers, each of which changed our view of the world. The first paper dealt with the photoelectric effect. By studying how electrons react to light, I later received the Nobel Prize. The irony is that even though I am known as the one with the relativity equation, it was this very research on light that led me to Stockholm. The next paper dealt with Brownian motion. Although it may seem that observing small particles in motion is somewhat like falling asleep by a pond with ducks, this phenomenon confirmed the existence of atoms in a way that could no longer be ignored. And what would a miracle year be without a few insights into our everyday reality, right? The third paper dealt with the special theory of relativity. What always fascinated me was the idea that time is not constant, and that when we move at the speed of light, everything gets a bit crazy. It was an idea that seemed as revolutionary as a magic wand, just with a bit more mathematics. The fourth paper brought everyone that iconic equation E equals mc squared. The notion that matter and energy are interchangeable sounded like science fiction, but it became a key pillar of modern physics. It was a moment when I realized that the universe has more tricks up its sleeve than we might think. I must confess that in 1905, I spent so much time immersed in my thoughts that I occasionally missed the real physical wonders around me, like the changing weather in Bern or the fact that I ran out of coffee in the kitchen. This year represented not only a breakthrough in science for me, but also a personal confirmation that something extraordinary can emerge even from an ordinary patent office. The miracle year 1905 showed me that with a bit of enthusiasm, exploration, and even a minimal dose of caffeine, we can achieve something incredible. It is a reminder that even the smallest moments in our lives can lead to the greatest discoveries. After the miraculous year of 1905, my career began to develop rapidly. The time I had spent thinking and experimenting at my desk in Bern started to bear fruit in the form of international recognition. For the first time, I felt that even my humble efforts could have an impact on global science. My research in the areas of relativity theory and quantum mechanics was gaining attention worldwide, and I began receiving invitations for university lectures and conferences. Every meeting with fellow scientists was enriching for me, as discussions and exchanges of ideas advanced my own understanding of the laws of physics. Although I was often absorbed in theories and equations, I met many wonderful people who shared my enthusiasm for uncovering the mysteries of the universe. In 1921, I was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. This honor was not only a recognition of my work on the photoelectric effect, but also a confirmation of the significant shift that physics was experiencing at the time. Accepting this prize provoked a mixture of emotions in me, from joy and satisfaction to a certain humility and doubt about whether I truly deserved such an award. With growing recognition came new challenges. The scientific community expected further groundbreaking discoveries, and I felt compelled to continue my efforts. It was important to me that my theories were not only revolutionary but also understandable and accessible to the broader scientific community. Despite all the recognition, I strove to stay true to my principles and values. I have always believed that science should serve humanity and bring it benefit. With this conviction, I continued my work, focusing on further research and education. My scientific career took me to many corners of the world and allowed me to collaborate with the greatest minds of the time. It was an incredible journey during which I understood how important it is not only to discover new horizons, but also to share the acquired knowledge with others. The international recognition of my work was a confirmation that even with small steps and great passion, something magnificent can be achieved. When people hear my name, they often imagine a man constantly engrossed in equations and cosmic mysteries. The truth is that I had a life full of personal events, romantic moments, and philosophical questions. My personal life was sometimes like a symphony, where passionate musical parts alternated with quiet, calm passages. I was married twice. The first marriage was with Mileva Maric, with whom I shared not only scientific curiosity, but also everyday concerns. Our marriage was full of debates about physics, and occasional difficulties were resolved over a morning cup of coffee or an evening walk. Then came Elsa, my cousin, who was not only my second wife, but also a great support in personal and professional matters. It was Elsa who could draw my attention away from my office chair, even when I was engrossed in thoughts about complex theories. In the rhythm of these personal relationships, I often returned to philosophy. While trying to understand the universe deep down, I pondered deeper questions about life. What is the meaning of our existence? What is our true purpose in the cosmic plan? These were questions I couldn't find simple answers to, yet they continually drove me forward. Humor played an important role in my life. I enjoyed the lightness of being and often borrowed a witty phrase to enrich even serious discussions. After all, how could I explain the complexities of the theory of relativity without a touch of humor? I once even stated that if I weren't a scientist, I could be a comedian. The idea of entertaining an audience with jokes about gravity on the stage of amphitheaters seemed irresistible to me. On the other hand, my life was also filled with romance. Some of my brightest moments were spent with the charming Elsa during shared dinners or stargazing. In these moments, it felt like the entire infinitely complex universe paused for a moment, and I was left alone in the enchanting presence of someone who cared about me. Personal life and philosophical reflections formed an intertwined mosaic that was just as important as my scientific career. It was a journey full of laughter, love, introspection, and simple human joys. Ultimately, these experiences reminded me that even as we strive to understand the complexities of the universe, it is human relationships and moments of happiness that give our lives true meaning. As my life reached its twilight, I increasingly reflected back on the journey I had embarked upon. This path was full of experiences, discoveries, and mistakes that shaped me as both a person and a scientist. The later years of my life were largely filled not only with further scientific deliberations and work, but also with a profound realization of the depth of human existence and our responsibility to ourselves and future generations. As a scientist, I always believed that our activities should not be defined solely by the pursuit of new knowledge about physical laws, but should also serve as an inspiration to seek truth and beauty throughout the universe. Science is not just about discoveries and theories. It is a duty to pass this knowledge on to future generations and use it as a cornerstone for the future. This is my true legacy, an effort to contribute to making the world a better and more understood place. One of the topics that frequently occupied my thoughts in recent years was how the incredibly powerful forces we have learned to control can be used both for the good of humanity and for its destruction. In many quiet and contemplative moments, I pondered the ethics of science and how important it is for scientists to consider the consequences of their discoveries. Our responsibility goes beyond creating and applying new technologies. It should always aim at their use for the benefit of all humanity. To future generations, I would like to leave the following message. Never forget the importance of continually expanding the boundaries of knowledge, but at the same time, uphold humanity and ethics. Science and technology should serve peace and progress. They should go hand in hand with justice and moral principles. Only then can we hope to overcome the problems and challenges that still lie ahead. In conclusion, I would like to invite you to join a journey of understanding the human stories that have shaped our past. I invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, An Echo of the Past, where you can learn more. Click the subscribe button, give a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to share our stories so we can collectively spread knowledge and inspiration for future generations. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that together we will continue this fascinating journey toward knowledge and understanding.